Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rake the Take, a golf betting podcast hosted by me, Chris Lewis. And this week, we're going to be going over the Genesis Invitational, which usually takes place at Riviera Country Club, but because of the wildfires in Los Angeles, they have moved the event to Torrey Pines at the South Course, which we just went over a few weeks ago for the Farmers Insurance Open. So you should be very familiar with this course by now if you watched that event or listened to that podcast a few weeks ago. But if you did not do any of those things, I'll just go over the South Course pretty briefly. Torrey Pines South is a 7,800 yard par 72. So one of the longest courses that they play on the PGA Tour. It's a U.S. Open venue also. The last time they played there, John Rahm won in 2021. It's a very historic course and has hosted plenty of great events over the years. This is definitely the best field that's been at Torrey Pines South in a long time, probably since the U.S. Open. The Farmers has kind of downgraded as an event over the years, so a lot of the top players really haven't played this course all that often, outside of like a few sparing moments in their career. But overall, I think everyone has a little bit of course history and familiarity here, but not a ton to kind of go off of in comparison to the last time we were here, because a lot of those guys typically play this event every year because it's kind of a lesser event. It's a lesser event in comparison to the other signature events. But since this is a signature event, you have most of the top players playing this week, including guys like Scotty and Rory and Colin Morikawa, and some other guys who we'll be going over in this podcast. Typically you need to have a kind of complete game to do well around here. I'd say in this field, having great ball striking will matter a lot less than usual, because you have a lot of great drivers of the golf ball. You have a lot of distance players, some good approach players throughout this field. And really where I think the kind of main separators will be at are around the greens. If you look at at this field, you do have a lot of players who are good around the greens and some players who, kind of have some variance in their putting. And I think that will really matter this week because of how difficult it is around the greens at this course. And if they really ratchet up the difficulty for this designated event, I think that it could be a very high scoring week. Kind of like it was at the Farmers a few weeks ago. But we'll see. If they really make the South Course really tough, we could really see a final score kind of closer to that 8 under range like we did when the winds were really high in the weaker field. But overall, it should be a good test of golf, and it will take a complete bag to really do well this week. So a lot of the guys that I'm taking, are players that kind of fit the U.S. Open profile, kind of regardless of distance and ball striking. So you'll see some names that, maybe are familiar to my cards, and some names that, are maybe a little bit newer. But let's just kind of get into the picks. There really isn't too much new to go over about this course other than what I've done before. To start off my card, I really like Sungjae Im this week. And Sungjae did finish in the top 5 at the Farmers Insurance Open a few weeks ago. He obviously does have a kind of a complete bag. He's a great ball striker, very accurate off the tee, very solid on approach. I'd say, his wedges probably have actually become a little less consistent recently. So he hasn't been as great of an approach player as he usually has been, but his short game has still been phenomenal. He's a great putter, great around the greens. And so that's kind of where I see Sung Jae fitting into this week. His just ability to scramble and play really well in kind of a harder course. I think that does kind of suit his game, like we saw with last year at the U.S. Open. And he's just been very consistent throughout his career. He's had some bad starts so far in 2025, but I kind of think that at plus 3,300, especially given that he was in contention at this event just a few weeks ago, that this is a good course fit for Sung Jae. I did on my model for that week, there was a little bit like a smidgen of value on him, but I didn't end up taking him. But he did have a good week that week. And so, yeah, no, I like the value for him in this event. I think he will not miss a beat coming back here, especially since he contended just a few weeks ago. And I like that. I even though this is a stronger field, but we are talking about a high class player, a world class player here in Sung Jae. So I do expect him to be in contention, especially given his recent history at this course. But after that, I got and Sung Jae, by the way, he's at 33-1. After that, I got Sam Burns, and Burns is at 55-1. He's interesting, because he's also really played well at this event in the past. He has some good history here when it comes to the Farmers Insurance Open. He was in one of the final groups going into Sunday in 2021 and kind of faltered. So overall, Sam Burns isn't necessarily the guy that you're looking for at like a U.S. Open style course because he's kind of inaccurate off the tee. But he has a great amount of distance, which fits well here, and his short game is phenomenal. He's obviously still a very good approach player. Burns in general does have a very complete game throughout the bag, and he played really well to end the season last year. Kind of earlier in the season, he wasn't as great, but in the later portion of the season, kind of going into 2025, he's had some solid performances. He played well at the Century, having a top 10, tied for 22nd at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, tied for 29th at the American Express. So we'd expect probably a little bit better than him. But last week also he was kind of flirting around the leaderboard for a little bit. He had some good ball striking numbers, but really struggled around the greens, which is usually a strong point of his game. So I do think that this is kind of a good spot to pick up Sam Burns at maybe a lower value than he should be at. We all know the class of player that he is. He's not that far away from a guy like Sung Jae in my mind. So at 55-1, I think that's a big discount for what you could be getting at Sam Burns in an event like this. So I do like him this week. He does have a complete skill set, and that's a great number for somebody like that. And at the same number, at 55-1, I also really like Russell Henley. And Russell Henley played great at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. He played great at Sony, coming off a phenomenal 2024 season. I love Russell. His profile should be great for this course. He hit a top 20 here and actually was in the final group with Mackenzie Hughes in the last round. I'm at the U.S. Open in 2021, but both him and Hughes really struggled, kind of fighting the moment. But I think Russell Henley has developed so much under pressure as a player, and I don't think those moments really bother him as much anymore. He just is so accurate off the tee. His approach play is phenomenal, and he's great around the greens. He's one of the most underrated players in the world. And at 55-1, even though he may not have the distance really to kind of conquer this place, he is perfect for a U.S. Open style event, given his ability to kind of play to par. And I'm really looking for a player like that this week. So I love Russell Henley. His skill set is perfect for this course, as we've seen in the past. But yeah, No, after that, I am taking also Thomas Dietrich at 60 to 1. Dietrich obviously is just coming off of a huge win at the Phoenix Open, but I do love his course fit profile for this event. He's a great driver of the golf ball, has phenomenal distance off the tee, and even though his ability around the greens is kind of average and he's sort of not necessarily the best player on approach, he's one of the best putters in the world right now, as evidence from last week. But the putting has always been a big skill set of his throughout his career. And I just think with a guy like Detry, that win, I think, is really going to bring him over the hump in terms of contending at a lot of events. It's by far the best performance of his career. And, I think he showed a lot that week that he can be a top-tier player on the PGA Tour. So I don't expect him to kind of have a huge hangover going into an event like this. I think he's going to want to continue to get wins because given how much he's been in contention throughout his career, I think he feels like he's owed a lot of money. And, I think he's a guy that I'm just going to kind of ride for a little bit at this course, and we'll just see what happens. I mean, I don't think 60 to 1 is a bad number. Just kind of hoping to catch a hot hand here and see if he can continue his great play from the Phoenix Open and earlier. But yeah, Detry's a great course fit in my opinion. And I just love his ability to have distance and putting, at an event that really needs it. I also like Akshay Bhatia. And Akshay, he's really kind of developed into become one of the better putters on the PGA Tour, which used to be a big weakness of his. But he's always been a great ball striker. He has phenomenal accuracy off the tee and is great on approach. Around the greens, he could be better, but I think with his putting, that's become a good equalizer for him. And his accuracy and efficiency with his ball striking is really critical at an event like this. So even though he may not have the experience of some of these other guys at Torrey Pines South, he actually did play the U.S. Open here in 2021 for what it's worth and made the cut. And actually, I think he did kind of, now that I think about it, yeah, he started off with 273s, which I don't think was that bad. I think that wasn't too far off to start off the event. And he had a top 20 here last year. So yeah, I do think this is a good course fit for Akshay. I'm not scared of taking him at any designated event at all. I mean, he's meant to be playing in these types of fields. He's a great golfer, and I think this is going to continue to kind of show how much he's developed over the past few years. So I do think Akshay is a great bet for this week, based on all of those criteria. But yeah, kind of going on down the card, I also like Christian Bezuidenhout, who came through for us last week at the Waste Management, cashing a top 5. And I think he's very undervalued at this event because of his lack of distance. And there's another golfer I'm going to talk about in just a second who's also really undervalued for that same reason. But yeah, he's obviously not the best hitter in terms of distance on the PGA Tour, but I don't think that's really hampering his play at all. He's still a great approach player, and his short game is phenomenal. He was another player who played really well at this event. He was tied for 9th going into the final round and then shot a 76 on the final day. He's always had good ball striking numbers on approach here. Some putting struggles in the Farmers Insurance Open in 2022 and 2024, but I don't really care about that. He's basically a good putter every week. He tees it up. One of the best putters in the world. And so I'm not too worried about him at all. And I think this is an event where I think because of his lack of distance, he's going to be undervalued on the betting odds. You can get him at 125 to 1. Oh, and I forgot to say, Bhatia is at 90 to 1. But you can get Bezuidenhout at 125 to 1. And I think that's a great price because He's playing great golf right now, as evidence from last week, and even some kind of hints at contention at Pebble Beach. So I think he's playing really well, and I just think I want to continue, like with Detry, I want to ride that good form still. He's just a very good player, and I think people are discounting him because of his distance. And another player, as I was alluding to a second ago, is Denny McCarthy, who also is coming off a good week at the Phoenix Open, showing good ball striking numbers and good putting. So you love to see that. He's also has picked up some distance this year, it seems like, which is good. But yeah, Denny, like I said last week, great around the greens, good approach player, very accurate off the tee. So I feel like with Denny, it's also only a matter of time for him to get his first win on the PGA Tour. And so I don't really feel like that he's a guy that I want to continue to discount either, especially when it comes from distance at an event like this. And Denny is also a great U.S. Open player in his career, as evidenced with his top 10 finish at the 2022 U.S. Open. He can play well at courses where it requires a lot of distance. Even though he doesn't have the best course history here, he hasn't played an event here since 2021, and I think everyone can agree that he is in a different tier of player now than he was at that point in his life. So I do like Denny. I think he's a great pick for this week. Another player who's very undervalued, especially in the placement odds, because of his distance. He's also at 125 to 1 for this week. Another player also at 125 to 1 is Matthew Fitzpatrick, who has been on a little bit of a downswing since 2024. He hasn't been playing his best golf really as of late, which is sad to see because I always have liked Matthew Fitzpatrick. He seems like a funny guy and a great dude, but he's just been inconsistent really throughout the bag over the last few years, or over the last year, I should say. And really that's just kind of because his ball striking and approach play has really gone down the tubes. He's one of the worst players in the world from 50 to 100 yards and 100 to 150 yards. I mean, when I say that, one of the worst in the world, he's in the bottom 20th percentile and bottom 24th percentile for those respective categories. So I'm being a little harsh when I say that. Obviously, I'm taking them this week. I don't think he's garbage. But he's actually been great on the long irons. He's been 66th percentile from 150 to 200 and 71 percentile in over 200 yards. So, I mean, I think with the course length, that should really suit his game. His distance, his accuracy are fine. He's fine off the tee. His short game is fine. He's still a great putter. All those things. It's just really the approach play that's really kind of gone out of whack. And I think it's also because he's picked up a lot of distance recently. And so he probably just doesn't have as much experience really hitting from these approach distances. And I think that's what's really affected his play the most, is that he's starting to play from different areas of the golf course than he's really used to. And so I don't think his irons have really been and wedges haven't really been as efficient as they usually have been throughout his career, because for a 3-year stretch period there, he was definitely one of the better approach players in the world, from any distance. And so I think that's a key of his game that he needs to get back, is those shorter irons and wedges. But even then, at a course like this, I think those longer irons are going to come into play more. So that will really benefit him. So at 125 to 1, I think that's a great price for Matthew Fitzpatrick. It's a good buy low opportunity for a player that we all know he's much better than where he's ranked right now. He should be in the top 30 in the world. He's 57th right now in the official World Golf Rankings, 51 in the Data Golf Rankings. I mean, he should be way higher than that. It's kind of crazy to see that he has fallen this much recently. But yeah, love Matthew Fitzpatrick. He will definitely bounce back at some point. And then my last bet, I got Mackenzie Hughes at 150 to 1. Just like Russell Henley, he was in the final group at Torrey Pines South when they played here in 2021, but kind of blew up on the final day. Given all that. But he's had some solid ball striking here in the past. Good tee degree numbers, even though kind of mixed results from a history perspective. But again, I don't really care about that. And Mackenzie Hughes, he actually did play really well last week. Positive strokes gained in tee to green in all categories except for putting, which is basically why you bet Mackenzie Hughes in the first place. So it was kind of funny that, it did seem like he came through for me last week. His first made cut at the Phoenix Open. How about that? And he gained strokes in tee to green. Just lost strokes putting. The irony of golf betting, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, no, I do like Mackenzie Hughes this week. I'm just going to continue to ride him. I mean, he just the ball striking, I think, is getting a lot better, as evidenced from last week too. I mean, I don't even think we can say he's a bad approach player anymore. He's very much average given over the past year of data. Around the greens, obviously still elite. Putting, still elite. Decent distance. Just lacks the accuracy. But you can kind of spread it around here. I mean, a lot of people are going to miss fairways because of how tight they are this week. So I don't really feel like that's a huge deal. But yeah, no, I mean, I do like Mackenzie Hughes. He's got that experience at this course, and kind of like with Russell Henley, both of those guys were in that final group together, and I had money on both of them, and they both choked. So I mean, that was a good time. But I also had money on Rahm, so I won money off that event. But yeah, no, I mean, it's that was an interesting time for sure for golf. Nostalgia, man. But yeah, no, I'm a fan of the card this week. Just to kind of run it back again. I got Sung J M, I got Sam Burns, I got Russell Henley, I got Thomas Dietrich, got Akshay Bhatia, got Christian Bezuidenhout, Denny McCarthy, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Mackenzie Hughes. We got the gang. I'm ready to roll. Got my money on Cantlay too for the hell of it, because. And yeah, just letting you guys know, I do bet Cantlay on the side no matter what bets I do give you if he is playing this week. But in the future, I will let you know if I do want you to take Patrick Cantlay. As far as this week goes, you can or you can stay off or you can take him, whatever. He's not a guy I'm giving out, but yeah, those other 9 guys, you should take them definitely. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good week.